Question: what is the oldest pub you have ever visited? Maybe you've been lucky enough to travel to Ireland and enjoy a pint at Sean's Bar in Athlone, which has been serving customers since the year 900. The Bingley Arms in Leeds started pulling pints about 50 years after that, in 950. Over in Germany, perhaps you've had a good Bavarian beer. You could have done so as far back as 1150 at Zum Riesen in Mittenberg. These are extraordinary historic venues, and if you've had a memorable experience of one of them, or maybe one that's not quite as old but still constitutes a really notable landmark for some reason, I'd love to hear the stories of those famous pints. I hope you will call us on 021 446 0567 or send a voice note to 072 567 1567. Describe where you had that special drink and what was so memorable about the venue. I think I'll get a couple of historic stories, but I'm guessing I might get far more local memories of what is quite possibly our oldest bar here in South Africa, which happens to lie right here in Cape Town. I'm talking about the Foresters Arms in Newlands, established in 1852, still going strong all these years later. Forries has become an institution, and a large portion of its recent history is wrapped up in the life of the guest who joins me on the couch today. Her name's Lorraine Muir. She was only 22 years old when she took ownership of the pub 30 years ago today. So it's a happy pubiversary, Lorraine, and welcome to Cape Talk. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Pippa. It's very nice to be here. Thank you.
The oldest pub in South Africa. Is that a confirmed title? I know the Pig and Whistle in Bathurst also likes to lay claim to that. How certain are you of that?
Pippa, some years ago, there was always the controversy around who had the esteemed title of the oldest pub in South Africa. So we hired a historian to delve into the government public records to find out just how old Foresters Arms was.
Okay.
And it was established in 1852. Mr. David Williams bought from a Mr. Maynard for £25 a place called The Cottage. Now, the Cottage actually had already been running from 1840. Although it wasn't an official pub, it was well known in Newlands that you could go there and have beer from one of the many breweries that were springing up. 1852, David Williams bought it, and it was aptly named Foresters Arms. And that's when it became established as an inn.
Okay.
And travellers from Cape Town to Simonstown spent their evening halfway to their destination at Foresters Arms.
It's incredible to think of that in today's modern world, where you can drive from Simonstown to the CBD in a little bit of an hour or so, that was the halfway point of a 2-day journey.
Absolutely.
By horse-drawn cart.
Absolutely incredible.
Extraordinary. Yeah. So, all right, so 1840s already, and the name the Foresters Arms referencing the fact that forestry workers used to go there to have their pint of beer at the end of a hard day's work.
Yeah, so the reason why David Williams named it the Foresters Arms was he was a well-known forester in the area, and he was a timber merchant, and he had a business there, and he used the cottage as his offices, and then inside all the foresters came to have their beer.
Now, Lorraine,
Foresters Arms.
Okay, so that was back in the 1850s. It's changed hands a couple of times over the years. It obviously has had some quite significant shifts in terms of the clientele who would drink there, from forestry workers. Obviously, during apartheid, under the Group Areas Act,
Yes.
a lot of people moved out of Newlands forcibly, would have been ripped away from their favourite watering hole.
That's
able
right.
to come back many years later. Fast forward to today, everybody knows it's a favourite spot for students. My parents drank there as students at UCT a long time ago.
Yes.
I'm sure our listeners can hear from your accent that you're not from South Africa originally. How does
No, I'm not.
22-year-old Lorraine end up buying the Foresters Arms 30 years ago today?
It's quite a story. I met my ex-husband in Israel when I was just 20 years old, and came over to South Africa. I was actually 23, and we were going to establish a little coffee shop in Stellenbosch, where he was studying. Had purchased all the crockery and everything. We wanted to do a Melissa's idea, and I was asked to get into Forries because the garden had been closed and they had problems, and they wanted someone to come in and try and sort out their problems. And I started then, 1990, the 18th of February 1990, and yes, what can I say? Then it was quite different from what it is today. One sold lots of beer. There was lots of men, not many ladies. Ladies all went out in the garden with the children. and you could get 3 or 4 items on the menu, which was the carvery, a burger and a steak roll. You certainly couldn't get yourself a nice glass of wine there, Pippa.
Yeah.
Or a coffee or an espresso.
And I have to emphasise, the ladies out in the garden was actually a requirement of almost the rules of the establishment until well into the 60s, I think.
That's absolutely correct.
Ladies were not allowed inside.
That's absolutely correct. And one of the funny stories is that the offices to Forries at the time was you had to go through the men-only bar to get to the office. And so every time I had to go through to the office, which was relatively often, I would get out!
Oh,
you're not allowed in here. You're not allowed in here.
Never mind that you're the owner of the establishment. What a story. It really does show how times have changed, Lorraine, because, of course, if you walk in there today, you're going to find people of all descriptions, ages, genders, families, students, business people having meetings there, sports fans watching sport games on the TV, kids playing on the jungle gym outside. You've really broadened the reach of who the establishment serves, haven't you?
Yes, I think it was my dream from the beginning, Pippa, that I wanted every part of society to enjoy this great establishment. It's actually an institution. And to give you an idea, yesterday alone, we had a 100-year-old lady celebrating her birthday at Forries,
yeah,
along with an international British cricket tour under-16 team, and they were all happy to be together.
Okay, an under-16 cricket team celebrating in the bar. I'm sure they were only served lemonade, right?
Of course they were. They're playing Bishops
okay.
today, so there was definitely no alcohol.
But I mean, it's been an extraordinary journey for you. As you said, what you've transformed the place into is something very different from what you found when you walked in there in the early 1990s.
Yes.
What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced in the past 30 years, would you say?
Well, I think the biggest challenge was actually getting an interview. South African breweries owned Forries at the time. And there hasn't actually been many owners of Foresters Arms. Breweries had owned it from 1889. So that's rather a long tenure. And getting the interview, they thought I was a male. So they were quite surprised when they found a female there at their door getting the interview. And yes, you know, after going through from the 3 interviews in the one day, they gave me an opportunity to show them what I could do with the place. They hadn't had a profit for over 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And I had been trained in troubleshooting, so it really was a challenge. Of course, I came from Scotland thinking I knew everything, and of course knew nothing. I was only 23. And yes, it was a big learning curve for me, but absolutely loved the challenge. And, you know, just the diversity of culture here in South Africa, the people that I worked with, it was just incredible. It hasn't been without its challenges, that's for sure.
I'm going to ask you to pop the headphones on, Lorraine, because one of our listeners has left a voice note with some fond memories of Forries that they'd like to share with us, and I'd like you to be able to hear it. Let's listen to that.
Thank you.
Pippa, it's Kim here. I have very fond memories of Foresters Arms, and I've known Lorraine from all those years back when I was a patron there. And my son, who's now 28, Jonathan, Lorraine will remember very well, for I was visiting one day with friends, and he was sitting in his car seat on the table outside in the garden, and he was teething, and Lorraine came along with a plate of crumbed calamari rings and gave them to him, and she'll remember that. And he became an absolute calamari fiend as a result of that, and still is today. And outside of that, I have an interesting family connection to the Foresters Arms. My great-grandfather, Peter Venning, was a South African artist. He came from the Netherlands, and he was the progenitor of Impressionism art in South Africa. And we've got pictures of him at the Foresters Arms, sitting with the Foresters back in the early 1900s, when he used to go and visit there to paint them and to paint there. He was living down the road at Newlands house, and he would also on other visits stay at the Newlands hotel, and Foresters Arms was a particular favourite place for him to go, because he was very fond of being with the local people who lived in the area. And so yeah, those are my 2 connections with Foresters Arms, and my own with my son being very memorable time. Arms, and that's of the historical connection through my great-grandfather, Peter Venning.
Thanks, Kim. Lovely memories. I hope we'll hear some more from other listeners. I'm intrigued by the calamari story. I mean, that beats a frozen teething ring any day. It is. You have created a family-friendly space, though. I mean, Lorraine, let's talk a little bit. For those who've never had the pleasure of a visit to Forries, what will they find there? It's much more than just a pub. Tell us a little bit about what you offer today.
Oh, no, it's a destination, Pippa. By the way, thank you for that, Kim. I do have memories of that, and I'm sure Jonathan comes to visit us a lot today. Thank you.
Probably.
Pippa, I started a play area at Forries in 1990 because I felt it was very important that when mums and dads did come, they could bring their children along. And in fact, today, it's often not the parents that ask to come to Forries, it's the children that come for the sand art and the play and our food, of course. And of course, we started we built a nouveau cellar, where in the cellar you can do tastings of all different beers. We've got 21 different beers. There's the history of Forries and Newlands in that cellar, how to make beer, and also there's a real running of all the history of all our customers that go over 4 generations, which is just quite magnificent.
The food is something that you've really adjusted as well. I mean, the Sunday Carvery has been an institution for many, many years, but you've taken it to the sort of the level of I guess a gastro pub is the right term to use in terms of the variety of the menu and the quality of the food. Talk to us a bit about what your menu looks like today.
Well, I'm a trained chef. Although I trained in Michelin level in France, I don't think our customers at Forries would prefer foie gras to a nice pizza.
Yeah.
It's been very, very important in my passion to ensure that we provide excellent food for our customers. And as you know, we can seat up to 600 guests, so we need to provide a lot of food, very quick, over a quick period of time. We offer salads for people that are salad people, fresh fish, pizzas, banting, burgers if you want burgers.
Really good banting pizza, I have to say, for the record. And then, I mean, you also offer a party space. As you mentioned, a 100-year-old lady celebrating her birthday there yesterday. My own husband hosted his birthday in your tap room a couple of years ago. You can actually take over a huge sport. If you want to host a big party there, can you come to Forries and say, we want to take over 100 seats, etc.?
Yes, you can. We have 3 areas where you can have a private function. They're very well used. We have weddings now in those areas. We had a 21st last weekend. We have christenings. Every type of celebration you can have at Forries.
I hope you don't christen the babies with beer.
I'm saying nothing.
Okay. We've got another voice note that's come through from somebody with memories of particularly the sporting experience at Forries. Let's take a listen to that.
And Lorraine, I was a barman in the Forries Arms during the 1995 World Cup, the Rugby World Cup. A lot of fun, a lot of celebrations had at that place, and I managed to get a ticket to Newlands for the England-New Zealand game, which was great. I hope Forries going well, Lorraine. Cheers.
It sounds like it certainly is. I mean, Lorraine, 30 years in, when you look back on that decision 30 years ago to give it a bash, clearly you're excited about what you've achieved at the place. Do you still hold on to dreams of things you still want to do at Forries and further changes you want to make? All
the time, Pippa. I remember at the time thinking this is a 5-year project.
Famous last words.
And Forries Arms is my first child. And luckily enough, all my family, my 3 children, my 3 of my children have worked there during their varsity years. Well, my young son's at Bishop still at 15, and he works in the kitchen, the pizza section. And the other 2, one's now managing there, and while he's taking a gap year. And my daughter too. So it's really my first child. And we're forever looking at new ways to be the leader in our industry. We're looking at new point of sales now to improve service any way we can. We're looking at, now today at Forries you can go and get a kombucha if you like, or a alcohol-free gin and tonic, or you can have a vegetarian or a vegan meal. We're looking to, because people are becoming more healthy, we're striving to be the best that we can be. and to remain relevant all the time. I mean, we need to just keep this up for the next 200 years.
Well, Lorraine, a happy 30 years of service to Forries and its very, very vast audience, if I can use that term. All the best for the next 30 to come. My own kids are about... Well, the oldest is 2 or 3 years away from being legal to come and have her first pint at Forries, but she's been going there since she could crawl. So we'll be seeing more of you. Thanks so much for coming in to celebrate the milestone with us today and sharing a bit of the really interesting history of a Cape Town institution. Our very best wishes for its future.